Callum stepped through the doorway. Nadia stood on the far side of the coffee table in a loose cream linen dress, one hand resting low on her belly, her face the color of someone who had not slept properly in weeks. She did not speak when she saw him. She didn't need to. The relief and the exhaustion crossed her face at the same moment, the way it does when someone has been holding something unbearable alone, and finally sees the person they should have called months ago. Vivienne had not moved. She stood in her ivory, structured silk dress, pearls resting against her throat, posture so composed it looked rehearsed. Because it was. She allowed herself one small recalibration when she saw him. Surprise folded quickly behind the familiar warmth she reserved for her son, but Callum was already looking at the coffee table. A document, several pages, a pen laid across the top with deliberate care. He picked it up and read every page. The room was completely silent while he did. When he set it down, he did not raise his voice. He didn't need to either. Vivienne delivered her threat the way she delivered everything, evenly, without flinching. Every account, every asset, every cent tied to the Ashford name, gone until he came to his senses. Then she picked up her handbag and walked out. Her heels struck the marble floor in sharp, precise rhythm. The front door closed behind her. The silence she left was enormous. Callum sat beside Nadia on the edge of the sofa. For a moment, neither of them moved. Outside, the evening light was fading slowly across the floor. He looked at her, at the shadows beneath her eyes, at the hand still resting on her belly. How long? Nadia didn't answer right away. She looked down at her hands for a moment, then out toward the window where the last of the evening light was disappearing behind the tree line. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet and steady, the voice of someone who had already lived through the worst of it and was simply now allowing someone else to see. It had started the week Callum told Vivienne about the pregnancy. Small things at first. Remarks about Nadia's background delivered with a smile, the kind that made them impossible to challenge without seeming unreasonable. Suggestions gently worded, that she wasn't quite the woman the Ashford family required. Nothing loud, nothing that left marks. Vivienne was far too careful for that. Then Callum began traveling, and the small things grew. 6 weeks before Geneva, Nadia had tried to tell him. She remembered exactly where he was standing, suitcase open on the bed, phone in hand, one eye already on the car waiting in the driveway. She had stopped him in the doorway of their room, her sage green maternity blouse soft against the morning light, bare feet on the cold floor, one hand resting on her stomach. "Your mother called my doctor," she said. "She tried to access my medical records. The clinic called me to confirm." Callum had looked up from his phone. He kissed her forehead. He told her he would handle it. He picked up his suitcase and walked out to the car. She stood in the doorway and watched it disappear down the driveway, one hand on her stomach, the house already settling into the particular silence it kept whenever he was gone. He had not handled it, and Vivienne had known he wouldn't. She noticed the felt birds first, 3 of them on the carpet near the window, scattered the way things land when they have been taken down without care. Nadia crossed the room and knelt beside the smallest one, the gray bird, the one she had stitched 3 times to get the tension right. Its wing had been torn loose, not pulled, not dropped, torn. The way you handle something that doesn't belong to you and never mattered to you at all. She heard the heels before she heard the voice. Vivienne stood in the doorway in cream silk, pearls at her throat, expression perfectly composed, as though she had simply stopped by to check on the room and found Nadia already there on the floor among the wreckage. The replacements arrive Thursday. Her voice was pleasant, almost helpful. Pieces more appropriate for an Ashford nursery. The crib alone is hand-carved, imported from Italy. Nadia looked up at her from a floor, the torn bird closed in her fist. "You don't get to decide what this child needs." Vivienne's eyes moved over her slowly. "You're not an Ashford. You just happen to be carrying one." She turned and walked away. Her heels faded down the hallway. The house went quiet again. Nadia stayed on the floor beside the window. The wooden rings her father had carved by hand lay abandoned nearby. She had sewn each of the felt birds herself, one by one, over evenings when the house had briefly felt like hers. None of it remained. When Callum learned the truth that night, sitting in the living room with her voice quiet and his chest tight, he remembered the phone call from a hotel. He remembered laughing. He remembered agreeing. That was the detail that broke him. Vivienne did not go quietly into defeat. She simply changed weapons. 3 days after Callum expelled her from the house, she exchanged the cream silk and pearls for a slate gray suit tailored in Milan gold cufflinks and the particular expression she wore when she had already decided how something would end. The campaign that followed was not loud. It was never going to be loud. Loud was for people who had no other options. Vivienne had many options. The compliance investigators arrived at Callum's office on a Tuesday morning, 2 of them, waiting outside his door with a careful, apologetic manner of people delivering something unpleasant on someone else's behalf. An anonymous complaint had been filed. Questions had been raised about financial approvals bearing his signature. Nothing proven, nothing criminal, just enough to trigger a formal review and fill every hallway in the building with the particular silence that follows a man whose reputation has been quietly questioned. Then it reached everywhere else. A card declined at a restaurant he had eaten at for years. Another declined at a pharmacy, prenatal vitamins, of all things. The receipt still sitting on the counter while he searched for a second card and pretended not to feel the eyes of the person behind him in line. A medical bill for Nadia's prenatal care was returned unpaid. When the clinic called to notify her, Nadia was standing alone in the kitchen. The representative was polite and uncomfortable in equal measure. The Ashford family account on file had been amended. Vivienne's office had submitted the change directly. Nadia's care would no longer be covered under the family plan. She stood in the kitchen for a long time after the call ended. The humiliation was slow, surgical, and, at every step, entirely deniable. The ballroom was exactly the kind of room Vivienne had always commanded effortlessly. Crystal chandeliers, white linen, old money arranged around circular tables with the careful precision of people who had been doing this for decades. Callum wore a navy slim-fit suit. Nadia wore a dusty rose wrap dress, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, carrying herself with a quiet dignity she had never stopped carrying even through everything the last few months had taken from her. They arrived together and moved through the room the way you do when you are trying to feel normal, stopping briefly for greetings, accepting congratulations on the baby, letting the evening settle around them like something that might still be salvageable. They were almost at their seats when the staff member stepped into their path. He was young and visibly uncomfortable, his apology arriving before his words did. There had been a change to the seating arrangements. He gestured toward the far side of the room, a smaller table, set apart from the main gathering in the way that made its purpose unmistakable to anyone paying attention. Several guests looked away. Others didn't bother. Callum felt the room shift before he fully understood what had happened. Not because of where they were being redirected, but because everyone present understood exactly what it meant. And not one person said a word. Across the ballroom, Vivienne stood in a midnight navy gown, diamond drop earrings catching the light, expression perfectly composed, watching, satisfied in the precise, controlled way of someone whose plan was proceeding exactly as designed. Callum placed his hand gently at Nadia's back. Together, they walked to the wrong table. Around them, conversations gradually resumed. The music continued. The evening moved forward as though nothing had happened at all. He went to her office the following afternoon. He wore the navy suit without a tie, his shirt open at the collar. Not a choice so much as an absence of energy for performance. The weeks had settled visibly on him by then, in the set of his jaw, in the way he moved through the lobby of the building his family's name was on, nodding at people who looked at him a half-second too long before looking away. Vivienne was at her desk when he entered. She glanced up without surprise, without guilt, without anything that resembled the expression of a woman who understood what she had done. Etly, that was almost the worst part, how quietly she said them. Not in anger, in certainty, as though the months of damage, the nursery, the accounts, the dinner, all of it, had simply been reasonable steps taken toward an obvious conclusion. Callum did not respond. There was nothing left to say to a woman who was not looking for resolution, only surrender. He walked out. Behind him, the office door closed. It was a small sound, an ordinary sound, but standing in the corridor on the other side of it, Callum felt something he had not expected, the sense that more than a meeting had just ended. That night, Nadia found him in his study, a dark cardigan over her slip dress, her eyes quiet with an exhaustion that had moved past words. The desk was covered, late notices, returned letters, the accumulated evidence of weeks of quiet destruction. She sat across from him and placed her hand over his. Neither of them spoke. Vivienne arrived at Davenport and Associates at exactly 2 o'clock. She wore deep charcoal tailoring, structured, precise, the kind of suit that announced its own authority before its owner said a word. She moved through the lobby with the unhurried confidence of a woman who had never once been kept waiting and did not intend to start today. She was in excellent spirits. The campaign was proceeding. Another week, perhaps 2, and Callum would have no choice but to come to her for help. She would be generous, of course. Once Nadia was gone, Lionel Davenport was already in the conference room when she entered. Dark gray 3-piece suit, burgundy tie, the same wire-rimmed spectacles he had worn for 30 years. He had been the Ashford family's attorney since before Callum could walk. He had stood at Conrad's funeral. He knew every secret the family held and had never once spoken out of turn. Today, however, he looked uncomfortable. He did not reach for the account restriction documents she had come to sign. Instead, he reached into the leather portfolio on the table and produced a heavy-bound document she had never seen, its cover bearing the Ashford family trust seal, its pages dense with legal language. She began reading with mild curiosity and finished with something entirely different. An irrevocable trust, established by Conrad Ashford years earlier, amended 6 months before his death. The house, the primary accounts, the controlling shares of Ashford Holdings, all of it transferred irrevocably to a single beneficiary, Callum. Lionel removed his spectacles and read Conrad's handwritten letter aloud. His voice was steady and quiet. The room was absolutely still. Vivienne sat without moving until the last word was spoken. Then she stood, picked up her handbag, and walked out. Her heels struck the marble floor of the hallway in their familiar rhythm. But this time the sound was smaller than the room she had just left. The sound of a woman walking away from power she had spent decades believing was hers. The calls stopped first. Then the accounts restored themselves quietly, one by one, the way damage sometimes undoes itself, without announcement, without apology, simply gone. A brief message arrived at Callum's office from Lionel Davenport. 3 sentences. The trust was secure. Conrad had seen to it. Vivienne had been informed that it was over. Callum read it 3 times in his dark gray Henley, sitting alone at his desk. Then he leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling for a long time, thinking about his father, about a man who had been dead for years and had still, somehow, managed to protect his son from something he never lived to see coming. The nursery was next. Callum came upstairs one morning to find Nadia already there. White t-shirt, dark leggings, her hair pulled back, no ceremony about it. She was lifting the crystal mobile down from above the crib. He didn't ask. He simply went to her side and began helping. They spent the afternoon that way, working quietly together, boxing up the Italian crib, the silk cushions, the imported rocking chair, everything Vivienne had chosen to replace what Nadia had built with her own hands. When the last box was carried out and the room stood empty, bare walls, clean floor, afternoon light coming through the window, without anything in its way, Nadia stood in the doorway and looked at it for a long moment. "It's ours now," she said quietly. Wren arrived on a quiet morning in early spring. Callum held her first, soft gray shirt, collar open, her small warmth settling against his chest like something that had always been meant to be there. Something in him that had been drawn tight for months, finally, completely, released. He looked down at her small, serious face. He thought about the document on the coffee table, the nursery floor, the phone call from Geneva he had laughed off and forgotten. He made his promise quietly, not to Nadia, to Wren. Vivienne woke before the sun came up. She lay still for a while, staring at the ceiling of a house that had felt cavernous since the night her heels last echoed through it with any sense of purpose. Then she got up, went to her closet, and stood there for nearly an hour. The rows of clothes stretched before her like a record of the woman she had been. The charcoal tailoring, the midnight navy gown, the ivory silk, the pearls. In the end, she reached for a simple pale gray blouse, dark trousers, flat shoes. No jewelry, no armor. She stood before the mirror for a moment and barely recognized herself. That felt right. She drove to the house and parked at the end of the driveway. Through the windscreen, she could see the front door, the pale morning light, the life being lived inside without her. Her hands were trembling against the steering wheel. She could not remember the last time that had happened. She walked to the door and knocked. Nadia opened it holding Ren, pale yellow onesie, dark eyes wide and already busy studying the world with the focused gravity of someone who had arrived with opinions. Vivienne's breath caught somewhere in her chest. "I'm not here to ask for anything," she said. Her voice was steady. The rest of her was not. Callum stood behind Nadia. The three of them held a silence that contained an entire year inside it. Vivienne did not move toward the chair she had occupied for decades at family dinners and difficult conversations. Instead, she lowered herself carefully to the floor. Ren looked at her, then reached. Nadia looked at Callum. Something moved between them that had no need of words. She placed Ren gently into Vivienne's arms. The room was completely quiet, where a document had once sat on the coffee table, pen laid across it like a promise of disappearance. There was now only a grandmother holding her granddaughter for the very first time.